The Calgary Police Service is investigating the suspicious death of a 3-year-old girl who passed away earlier this month. At approximately 11:30 a.m. on Wednesday, September 27th, 2017, emergency crews were called to a home in the 5300 block of Rundlehorn Drive, Northeast, for a report of a child in medical distress. The girl, identified as Ivy WICK, was transported to hospital where she eventually succumbed to her injuries on Thursday, October 5th, 2017. Ivy's death was initially being handled by the CPS Child Abuse Unit. However, following an autopsy and further investigation, the Homicide Unit is now leading the case. Her death has not been ruled a homicide by the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, as further test results are pending. However, the case is being investigated as such. Detectives do not believe Ivy's death was random, and with most child suspicious deaths, investigators are focused on those individuals who had access to her on the day she suffered her injuries. Several individuals have been interviewed in connection with this case. The investigation has determined at the time of the incident, Ivy was living with her mother and her mother's boyfriend, who is not Ivy's biological father. Doctors who assessed Ivy upon her arrival at hospital do not believe her injuries to be consistent with a fall of any kind. Investigators are asking anyone who may have information about the case to please contact the Calgary Police Service at 403-266-1234 or the Homicide Tip Line at 403-428-8877. Crime Stoppers is also an avenue that people can call, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
What are you able to tell us about the persons who were with Ivy the day that she sustained the injuries?
Like I mentioned in my release, we believe that Ivy's mother and her boyfriend had access to this child.
Is there anybody else that you know of who may have been at the home during the time when she sustained the injuries?
Again, that's part of the investigation, and I won't comment on that right now.
Can you just give us a sense of why it's believed that these are not random injuries?
What I can say is that these injuries, when you bring a child into the children's hospital, they see children, hundreds of children every week, and you can very quickly see the difference between injuries that are from a fall, or a child gets injured in the normal comings and goings that children get involved in. So if they're playing tag or whatever, I can say that these injuries were. There's no question that these injuries were significant and led to her death.
Did they appear accidental in any way?
We are confident that the Homicide Unit taking up this investigation is the appropriate unit to be addressing this matter, and that would and that the injuries are consistent with homicide.
Are there any other children in the home?
There are no other children in the home.
When she arrived in medical distress, was there ever a point before she passed away that anybody was able to speak with her, with Ivy herself?
I don't have the answer to that question.
How cooperative has the mother and the boyfriend been with the investigation?
We haven't spoken to them yet.
Are they in custody or?
No, they're not.
Is there any connection between your investigation and the GoFundMe page that was created for Ivy?
The GoFundMe page, I have two things to say about that. Is whenever a GoFundMe page is created, the police have nothing to do with that. That's something that either friends or family typically will endeavor to start up for the family. The second thing is there was injuries that were articulated on the GoFundMe page, and I can say that the way that it was articulated on the GoFundMe page in no way reflects the injuries on this child.
So you're talking about the reference to her falling out of her bed, I think, there.
Do you speak to the people that set up that GoFundMe page?
Right now, that's not part of the investigation.
I just wanted to clarify my earlier question I'd asked about their cooperation. Have you interviewed the mother and the boyfriend at all?
We haven't spoken to them yet.
Okay. So are you able to shed any more light on in the release where it says you've spoken with several people? Are you able to elaborate any more on that?
As you can imagine, there's several investigative steps that we take in every investigation, and part of it is speaking to people and getting an idea of the context of the offense, the context of the people that are involved. So we have conducted some interviews. We just haven't spoken to these people yet.
Maybe I missed this, but is there a reason that you haven't spoken to them yet?
Each investigator takes their own investigative strategy to an investigation, and I'm not one to question that. I completely trust the investigators to make those decisions, and I'll leave that up to the investigators to decide that.
So is there anyone that's actually considered a suspect or suspects?
We have 2 suspects in this matter. Yeah, I've already described them.
You're confirming that that's the mother and the boyfriend?
Correct.
Was the home the mother's home or the boyfriend's home or another home?
It would be a shared home between those 2.
To your knowledge, are the 2 suspects aware that they are suspects in this case?
I don't know if they're aware or not. Like I said, none of my investigators have spoken to them, and so I don't know if they're aware or not.
Is that normal for cases like this where you could be a suspect without knowledge of your, possible charges pending or whatever?
Yeah, like we certainly don't tap people on the shoulder and say, hey, you're a suspect in this particular offense. There's certain thresholds that we have to meet to put people in certain categories. Do we notify them do we notify people that they're suspects or persons of interest? We certainly don't do that. We're under no obligation to do that whatsoever. Again, some investigations start in a way that is very traditional, a very traditional investigation. So you talk to everybody. Other investigations, we kind of handpick who we want to go talk to, and I would describe this investigation as one of those.
Are you able to comment if arrests are expected anytime soon?
All I can say about that is that the Homicide Unit has taken over this investigation. We are endeavoring to put significant resources into this, and we are doing our best to really find justice for this little person.
So when cases like this are obviously rare, what goes through investigators' mind when a case like this comes across their desk?
Well, I will tell you that the investigators that are involved in this, every single one of them has children. Some of them have children that are certainly at the same age as this young girl, as young Ivy, and I think that sometimes we can put a filter on and try to block that out, and other times it's very difficult to do that. So these investigators are very professional. They do the best that they can to do that, and they remain professional. It often is only until after these events are investigated that it really hits them as to the significance of the incident.
Can you just, to go back to the parents or the mother and the stepfather, do you know of their whereabouts? Are they in the city still? Can you comment on that?
I don't know where they are right now. Not to say that they fled the jurisdiction. I'm not inferring that whatsoever. I just haven't been updated on where they are. Whether I know that our investigators haven't tried to contact them yet, but I'm sure that that will be forthcoming.
Do you know if they're from Calgary originally, though? Their families are here, that sort of thing?
I don't know that. I'm sorry.
Were either of them or Ivy known to police or child family services, anything like that?
Child Family Services have their own operations. We don't get involved in their operations. I would defer any questions or queries to Child Family Services if you have any.
But mom and boyfriend known to police?
No.
When you're asking for tips from the public on this, I'm guessing it might not only be regarding the specific incident, but other things that might have showed signs of things. Could you elaborate to the public on what sort of things that they might not think are important that could be useful in this case?
Well, often people that are associated to this young child, or sorry, let me just back up for a second. If people are associated to this young child in one way or another, and they noticed anything, if they had any conversations with anybody, if they noticed any marks or bruising, if there's any issues that perhaps had come up that they had noticed and maybe just neglected, or not, I shouldn't say neglected, but maybe they just discounted for whatever reason, we'd like to speak to them. That's important stuff for us to hear about. So I just want to make a clarification on a couple points. The first point is that, like I mentioned in my original, narrative, was that the members of the Calgary Police Service Child Abuse Unit initially took this investigation. The Homicide Unit, as you can imagine, we don't take case files until we are dealing with a person who's deceased or the person's death is pending. In this particular instance, members of the Child Abuse Unit took this investigation, and they had initial contact with the parent, with the mother, and with the boyfriend. So they have spoken to members of the Calgary Police Service. When I spoke earlier, I just want to be very clear. I was speaking more so from the Homicide Unit perspective. We have not spoken to them from our perspective yet. And the other point I just want to clarify as well is we do believe them to still be in Calgary. So it's not like they're in some other part of Alberta or Canada. We believe them to still be in Calgary.
So just to repeat it
Yeah.
back to you, the Child Abuse Unit did speak with mom and boyfriend at one point. Homicide Unit has not initiated those conversations yet.
That's correct. Yeah. And again, I want to be very full and frank with everybody here, and just we wanted to make sure that that we're very clear on that.
And just to follow up, when members of the Child Abuse Unit were speaking with the mother and stepfather, and this would be after the little girl was hospitalized, right? Was there cooperation from them at that point?
I don't know the answer to that question. Not because I am refusing to answer the question, is because I haven't been made aware one way or another of that. So it's kind of two separate investigations. I haven't been briefed by the child abuse investigators, but I have been briefed by the Homicide Unit investigators. I don't run the Child Abuse Unit, so I'm speaking strictly from the Homicide Unit perspective.
And I know you talked a little bit earlier about sort of the different tactics, like investigational tactics, right? In terms of whether you talk to suspects right away or not.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's tricky, but can you elaborate at all on under what circumstances and why you would go about not talking to the mother and father, like the suspects? Can you just talk about that a bit?
Well, we like to have our ducks in a row. So it's very difficult to go into an interview with people, with whether they're suspects or accused or whomever, and you don't know the answer to any of the questions before they come out, before you ask the question. So we like to ask around. We like to talk to neighbors and family and friends and co-workers, that sort of thing. We like to ask certain questions. We like to corroborate their answers, and then we use that information to form our questions moving forward in the investigation. So really, as a building block, we like to create a foundation for our investigation, and then we've created that foundation, and we use that information to then move our investigations forward. Again, I am not one to sit here and to either critique or be critical of the investigators in any of these cases. They know what they're doing. They are very, very good at their trade craft. They have a strategy that they wish to employ. It is not for me to question that strategy because I trust them implicitly. So that's what's happening in this case. would there may be perceptions on who we should be talking or when we should be talking to certain people. I leave that to the experts, which are the homicide detectives.
I just wanna, make sure, is the child abuse unit involved in any way, or is it completely in the hands of homicide going forward?
No, we continue to liaise with the child abuse investigators. Just as I mentioned, as the homicide investigators are literally subject matter experts in their field, our child abuse investigators are also subject matter experts in the field of child abuse. And we continue to liaise with them. We continue to have certainly their cooperation, and really the cooperation of other government agencies such as the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, that sort of thing. So I will also add that it's still preliminary in the investigation. This young girl passed away on October 5th of this year. So here we are, 2.5, 3 weeks into this investigation. I will add that as is the case with the death of little people, children, it often takes a little bit longer to get back results of autopsy, different tests that we send away for blood work and other things, and it often takes a while for that to come back. So we're aware of that. We've investigated these types of offenses, unfortunately, dozens and dozens of times in this community. So we just we'll be able to release more information with regards to much of that as those results come forward.
Do you know when those results are expected so that the medical examiner can determine whether this is a homicide or not?
I wish I could give you an answer for that because it would be better for our investigation, but sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's months. And we just have to be patient and do other investigative interviews, do our interviews to make sure that we're able to forward the investigation pending those results.
Can I ask one other quick follow-up question?
Certainly.
I'm sorry if I missed it off the top, but was there anyone else in the house at the time that the call came in and that police and medical personnel arrived?
That's certainly one of the avenues amongst other avenues that we're going to be looking into. It's all that all forms all part of the investigation.